fellow preachers. My name is Reverend Debra Griffis-Woodberry. I am an associate with Pinnacle Leadership Associates, and this is my homiletical hot take. Do you ever ask yourself, should I say this from the pulpit? As a pastor and preacher, I know that I have asked that question many times. The question emerges when I am caught between the tension of knowing what needs to be said and, on the other hand, knowing and predicting costly disagreement from my listeners. There are, I think, three basic types of sermons. One is the pastoral, wherein we offer words about God's grace and God's comfort and God's holy presence with us day by day. The second type of sermon is a teaching sermon, wherein we instruct about biblical or doctrinal principles. And then the third type of sermon is a prophetic sermon, where we address evil and injustice. Over 100 years ago, a man named Peter Dunn declared that the task of the newspaper in that day was to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. Preachers quickly recognized that as their task as well. Those words still define our job, don't they? They are still true. In today's volatile world, we find ourselves, preachers find ourselves asking, do I comfort the afflicted or afflict the comfortable? A few people are called and gifted, I think, to stay in the prophetic lane, always pointing out injustice, always calling the church and the world to a better place, to resist evil, and telling us how we might better love our neighbor. Most preachers, though, are also pastors, and we stay more with pastoral care and teaching. But there comes a time when we want to enter the prophetic arena. And that's when we ask the question, should I say this from the pulpit? Do I muster the courage to preach like a prophet, to call out injustice, to say the evil of today, to name it? Or do I stay in the comfortable zone of being pastoral or offering instructions? When you are the pastor and feel called to enter the prophetic zone of preaching, consider these 5 passageways to craft your sermon. First, give it prayerful discernment. Position yourself that you might hear God. Go to your prayer closet. Go to that space where the energy is appropriate and you can hear God's word for you and for your people. And once you know the word that you are to give, ask the question, should I say this from the pulpit? Second pathway to crafting a prophetic sermon. Pay attention to the context. Who are your listeners? What is the larger setting? What's happening in the local community? Knowing the context, then, aim to do no harm. Third passageway. If you employ the advice of do no harm, ponder, will this sermon hurt more than help? What is the cost? What is the cost to me? What is the cost to my family? Will I be fired? Will adjudicatory authority call me on Monday? Fourth passageway. Create a well-prepared sermon. Nuance it out. Polish it. Then seek a peer review. Ask a trusted friend for honest feedback. Ask them to listen for any unknown or unintended disrespect or offense in your words. And the fifth passageway to preaching a prophetic sermon as the pastor is when the answer is yes. Yes, I should say this from the pulpit. Proceed. Proceed with courage. Proceed with confidence. Proceed with hope. Most of the time, pastors will stay in the comfort zone, offering comfort, giving people hope, being with them in the day in and day out ups and downs of life. There are times, though, when the pastor knows that he or she must enter that prophetic zone and must call out injustice and evil. It's like Jeremiah saying, within me there is something like a burning fire shut up in my bones. I am weary with holding it in, and I cannot. When you dare preach an uncomfortable sermon, expect trouble. The late John Lewis would call it good trouble. And that is my homiletical hot take.